What do you do when you lose all hope in life? Who will stand by your side when you need it most? Who will be your savior, either anchoring you to this world or setting you adrift on the open seas? Before I say anything else, this series that I'll be talking about today deals with topics of suicide, depression, death, and pretty much every form of abuse under the sun. So watch at your own risk. Shounen no Abyss, or Boy's Abyss in English, is a story of imperfection and trauma. As much as I would like to tell you that this story is a masterpiece, something that everyone should read, I honestly don't feel like that's the case. As flawed of a statement as it may be, I think this series is one that either resonates with you or doesn't. Its impact may have been purely unintentional, or the author may have had some plan in mind for this to be the outcome, but either way, it doesn't matter. This story had an impact on me like almost no other story has, and that's why I want to talk about it in this video. The worst thing about so many people's problems is that said problems are rarely acknowledged until it's too late. And that's exactly the case for Reiji Kurose. He has lived his entire life in a broken home and in a broken town. His father abused him as a child and eventually left, never to be seen again. His grandmother is only increasing in age and his older brother lives the life of a shut-in. Reiji and his mother are alone, with only each other to rely on and the world on their shoulders. Reiji is a pretty normal kid. He has good grades and some normal hobbies for a teenager. But when he is offered a position at a prestigious university in Tokyo, he declines in a heartbeat. His future has already been decided for him, and I think this is the start of the story's uniqueness. While I won't call this trope common by any means, it definitely isn't rare in stories. Many people share the experience of being restricted by parents or family when trying to pursue something for themselves, which is reflected in the stories that depict this. But this depiction of the subject is a little bit different. Reiji's mom never once tells Reiji not to pursue his dreams. She doesn't even know he has these aspirations to speak of. Reiji not wanting to leave his family is an internal commandment of his that gets added to by his situation at home. Reiji's mom has a job saved for him at a construction site because that's the only life she imagines him living. And this isn't to clear his mom of all blame. She is guilty of quite a few comments that further demotivate Reiji, but even these come out more natural than one would expect. One time when Reiji is helping his mom out, she says, "I'd die if you weren't here." The phrase could have been worded better on his mom's part, but is honestly a pretty reasonable statement as a throwaway line. It seems like almost a show of gratitude, however this just sends Reiji further into a spiral of hopelessness. I think this depiction of familial pressure is a pretty nuanced one compared to other stories. It's not overly dramatic, there's no shouting matches between Reiji and his mom. It's just a struggling household, a mother who doesn't have enough time to care for a son, and a son who feels responsible for the well-being of his family. And this is just the first of so many relationships we explore in this manga. Reiji's mom represents stagnation and tradition. The path she offers her son is one of mundanity and impersonal achievements, to stay in the town they both live in until the day they die, and to have children that would hope to do the same. Reiji's mom symbolizes the continuation of the cycle and the emphasis on family before everything else. But while on the way home one day with his friend, Reiji learns about the Lover's Abyss. It's a story written about the small town that Reiji lives in that talks about a spot in the river where two lovers committed suicide together. This sends Reiji down a different path. He imagines how it would be to die, to leave all of his problems behind and drift off into the endless abyss. No guilt to feel when you can feel nothing at all. But in the end, these are just fantasies, dreams of an act Reiji knows he doesn't have the courage to commit. That is until he meets Nagi Aoi, an idol who for some reason works at the convenience store that Reiji frequents. One of the mysteries at the start of the story regards why Nagi, an up-and-coming idol from Tokyo, is living in the middle of nowhere, but that's something we can explore more later on. After Reiji recognizes Nagi and accidentally lets slip his poor family circumstances, she asks him to guide her around town. During their trip, Reiji talks more about his situation, thinking this was a chance for him to vent all his feelings to somebody who probably wouldn't be in town for long. After learning more and more about Reiji, Nagi starts talking about the Lover's Abyss, finally suggesting to Reiji that they die together. And suddenly, Reiji's meaningless musings come to fruition. He thinks for a moment, realizing that his life is on a fast track to a dead end, and eventually agrees to die with Nagi, thinking that dying with an idol would at least make his life worth something in the end. The two share a moment in Nagi's apartment before they plan to die together, but while they do, Nagi's husband, a 40-something-year-old man, walks into the room. Nagi's husband himself is unimportant right now, but this is one of the problems that many people cite when talking about the story. Many people complain about the story's excess of obscene moments between Reiji and other characters, and while I do think it's a bit gratuitous at times, this doesn't really strike me as an issue. It's just a reality of life that people have these interactions, and the story is mature enough to not treat these scenes as anything but a way to progress the story further. Either way, Nagi represents the second route laid out before Reiji. She symbolizes escape, but a particular type of escape, the type that has no path back from. She wishes to die for her own undisclosed reasons, thus giving Reiji a chance to escape the responsibility he has of being with his family. Nagi offers death, but sometimes death can be preferable over a miserable life. While Reggie does take the offer to die with Nagi, circumstances continue to arise that prevents the two from going through with it. In this story, Nagi's proposition is the catalyst for so many other changes that arise from that point on, including our next character's involvement with Reggie's life. So during one of Reggie's suicide attempts with Nagi, they are moments away from jumping into a raging river during a huge storm. However, they are found by Reggie's homeroom teacher, Yuri Shibusawa, called by our students as Miss Shiba. Miss Shiba has always encouraged Reggie to pursue a higher education, wanting to make sure he achieves his dreams to the fullest. However, Reggie has always stood firm to his goals. But now that Miss Shiba finds Reggie trying to commit suicide, she takes a more proactive stance with him. After Reggie is saved by Miss Shiba, she takes Reggie to her home, sheltering him during the storm. During this, Miss Shiba finds out about Reggie's home life and various circumstances and vows to keep Reggie safe from the world. Near the start of the story, Miss Shiba is a light of hope to Reggie. She wants to help him live his own life away from his mother, but her help slowly evolves into something more twisted. Her helpful demeanor turns controlling as she does everything in her power to allow Reggie to live the way she thinks he wants to live. Miss Shiba represents another path that lies before Reggie, the choice to put his life in the hands of somebody else and to escape the world he lives in, but with Miss Shiba looming over his shoulder for the rest of his life. Another symbol that is brought into the picture here is Tokyo, the capital of Japan and the place Miss Shiba promises to take Reggie. Tokyo is representative of a different world and a different life, and is a symbol that persists to be larger than life throughout the story. And another character that furthers the symbol of Tokyo to Reggie is Sakuko, also known as Chako. Chako is Reggie's childhood friend who goes to a prestigious all-girls school in the town. She has a dream to leave the town and go to a university in Tokyo and wants to eventually be an editor for one of her favorite authors. She has a dream which is in stark opposition to Reggie's brutal apathy towards life and the future. She tries her best to convince Reggie to go to Tokyo with her, but knowing of his family's circumstances, she understands his situation more than anybody else. Chako is always there for Reggie to talk to despite everything else changing in his life, but one day even this security leaves him. When Miss Shiba makes a plan to get Reggie into Tokyo, he tells Chako about it, and the two resolve to go together and succeed despite their humble origins. But in a story as tragic as this, things rarely go so ideally. Chako's family has been toxic for a long time. They pretend to care deeply for their daughter, but deep down they only try to maintain appearances for self-serving reasons. They stick to tradition and follow a sort of patriarchal structure in their family, with the father and grandfather of Chako having a disproportionate amount of power over everyone else. So when Chako's grandparents tell our parents not to let her go to Tokyo, they listen without any complaints. And just like that, the roles have been reversed. Chako is now the one stuck in the town, with Reggie having the chance to escape his terrible life. This change is the start of Chako's breakdown, as it leads them to harbor extreme ill will towards their parents for the rest of the story. Chako, for a lot of this tale, is a hope for a better life. She always tries to get Reggie to go to Tokyo, to escape his toxic life and find something more to do. But eventually the world around her drives her to insanity, leading her to represent a reckless sort of freedom, and escape to Tokyo for no other reason than to leave. This is another thing I really like about the story. Characters are dynamic and ever-shifting, they never sit still. They exist in a world beyond just the main character. Chako, Miss Shiba, and so many other characters go through drastic changes in the story, and even if the chain of events leading to this starts from the main character, the choices come down to them. And that's another thing, choice. The story revolves around choice and the lack of it that exists in a lot of people's lives. Reggie thinks he has no choice on what to do. Reggie's mom doesn't think to give him this choice. Nagi offers Reggie the choice to die, and Chako and Miss Shiba offer Reggie the choice to leave it all behind. There's a number of other characters I could discuss with you guys, such as Reggie's former father, or his shut-in brother, or his childhood friend, but I think I've shared with you the most important ones for the start of the story at least. Some final small details here. Again, I just wanted to acknowledge that this story is messed up in a lot of ways, and many of the events in the story genuinely made me sick to my stomach, but it still felt genuine all the while despite that. The story is pretty slow all things considered, but it has a way of hooking you into each minute detail despite the mundanity of it all. One of my favorite technical aspects of the story are these panels right here. These are like page-wide spreads where a character will just pour out their heart and soul for another character and the audience by extension to see. There's such a stylish and captivating method of conveying thoughts in this story, which I really enjoyed. Again, this story may not be perfect. It has a number of unsavory details and uncomfortable truths which may seem pointless to those that the story doesn't resonate with. But the point here is that it resonated with me, and I think if you watched up until now, it may just hit home for you too. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye!